What an amazing treat that you are in for. This is something so cool because you're going to get introduced, if you don't already know him, to somebody who's a fantastic songwriter, performer, and storyteller. I'm a fan of storytelling in any format. This is Charlie Cope on the DiscoPosse podcast, starting right now. What's happening, crew? Thank you for joining. This is a really fun one because I get to say for the first time that I've got live music. Well, I guess technically it's not live. It was live when we recorded it, but you're getting the tape version. We actually get to have Charlie Cope. Charlie is a fantastic musician, songwriter, storyteller. It's a really cool style. I really dig it. We talk a lot about what drives his stylistic approach to music, his approach to storytelling in general. Charlie has an incredible story to tell. We cover a lot of great ground. And like I said, check it out because you get to hear some of his own music right here on the podcast. Congratulations to Charlie on the release of Americana and Whatever's Left, a really fantastic album. So I've got links down below, of course, to the Spotify and to his own music. So I do highly recommend you take a listen to it, follow him on Instagram. Without further ado, let's just jump right in. This is Charlie Cope. Oh, sorry. One more quick thing. Before you do that, can you just hit the subscribe and the like button and hit the little bell? Lets you know when more great stuff like this comes out. Happy 2021. Holy moly. This is actually the last podcast that's going to get released. So there you go. With that, this is Charlie Cope on the DiscoPosse podcast.
Hey, this is Charlie Cope, and you're listening to the DiscoPosse podcast.
You've had to do that a lot on a lot of radio shows and a lot of podcasts, Charlie. So it's awesome to hear your voice and be in the conversation now. This is so exciting. So thank you for joining. I'm really, really excited. Glad we had a chance to put this together. So for the folks that are new to you, if you want to do me a favor, give a quick little bio. We're going to talk about the new album. We're going to talk about the industry in general and touring in a pandemic. And this is a lot of craziness that you've got to deal with right now. But yeah, give us the elevator pitch and why people, and I'm telling you, there's links below, but people need to get your album. It is wicked good.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So my name is Charlie Cope. I'm an Americana singer based out of Texas. Singer-songwriter. I write all my own songs, and a couple of them are co-writes. And I, like you said, I've been touring a lot, especially during the pandemic. And this album took me 7 years to release, to write and create and live. And I'm hoping that a couple people that have heard these songs might have heard, lived through similar situations that may need a little bit more understanding in life, that need to feel a little bit less alone, might hear these songs and feel a little less alone in the world, and maybe get a little connection between me and them, and a couple fun stopping catchy songs along the way. It's just a bonus.
Well, and it's funny that you bring this up, right? Like the Americana style and your roots in that really, really come out. And it's funny, I grew up as a kid, like it's just nothing but Highwayman records. And, so I grew up with Waylon and Willie and like the classic stuff. My dad was really digging that. The only guy that worked in the tech industry that had cowboy boots, it was kind of wild that, I had this really diverse set of influences. And when I started playing my own music, it was funny because it comes out in this really strange diversity of my background of listening. And then my playing would swing and move around. Now, far be it from, me saying I'm a musician relative to the work that you've done and how much you've created. But it gives me a super, really good appreciation of bringing it through and maintaining your voice, but hearing the roots of it, it really just, it hits home to folks like me who grew up with a lot of that stuff.
Appreciate it. Yeah. I also grew up on that Willie and Waylon and the boys. When I was younger, I wanted to sing like Waylon Jennings, and I wanted to write music like Merle Haggard and lyrics like Chris Christopherson.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously back then it was all, country stuff. Now it's a little bit more diverse, Americana, and like you said, kind of a little bit of everything.
Well, and this is the thing, maybe to set the stage for folks that are fresh to the phrase, right? Because we went through like, you know, classic country, and then there was new country, and the new country's not new anymore because it's old new country, and you had that sort of wave of the next generation of it, and then Americana is this beautiful sort of, you know, almost like a throwback, but it's just a reminder to the origins of the whole genre.
So Americana music is basically just kind of everything old school, kind of put in a pot and mixed together. It's like a little bit of folk, bluegrass, rock and roll, blues, country, like you said. And I try to touch on every side of it as I could in this album. You know, starting with "What About You," obviously being a very big rock song, and into like "You Somebody," which is pretty country, kind of folky. Uh, if your grandparents listen to it, so it's like
Now,
Bob Dylan, Neil Young, you know.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's the interesting thing of the music and the lyrics as a combination. The stories are super strong, and it's amazing. I've always found that like there's so much stuff out there today in the sort of traditional like serious, you know, hits one crowd, God bless them, right? They're doing, they're making money, and they're still supporting the business, but it's just I never found, I don't even know the lyrics to any of the songs because you don't need to. You just need to know the hook, and it's catchy. But what I found with listening to your songs is you really genuinely listen to the story, and then the more I play it, the more it's like you feel like that like emo kid. Listen to the words, man, because it actually, it does have a real true start, you know, middle, finish as a storyteller. This is exciting to me that you can do it, and also again diversity of styles, like you said. You got some stuff that's more towards rock, and then you've got those real cool sort of bluegrass tones that are in there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, a lot of people ask me like where like the genres came from and like that, you know, the bluegrass, the rock, and the everything, you know. And I mean, hell, right now I'm wearing a David Bowie T-shirt, and
Nice.
it was that style really came from because I wanted to tell a story, like you said, but not just with the lyrics, also with the music itself. So taking, you know, "What About You," the first song on the record, which is by far the most popular. Um, it it, it it's kind of in the key of C, kind of not, because it never. I don't want to talk too musician wise, and people that aren't musicians not understand, but it never really ends on a C major, so it never really has like a period. It's almost like you're just talking for ever and ever, and I felt like that builds anxiety, and that's what I wanted to infer in that song, and tell a story without the lyrics, and then with the lyrics, and then make them kind of come together, and sometimes even make them say two different things at once.
Wait, and it, the sort of the walking style of the story along with the back, it reminded me even like the Stones' "Faraway Eyes" was always one of those ones where it just has this beautiful rolling back tone, like you almost picture just like this, like the movie set going by behind them, and that's what the music is, and then the story, and then it comes into the hook, and then you're in a song again, and then it goes back to story. And I love that interplay and the style.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Um, I also, so I didn't want to just have, you know, a bunch of, I didn't just want to have 14 stories. I wanted one big story. And so it's not really more 14 stories. It's more like 14 chapters of the story. So there's different parts. And as you go through it, it gets more, uh, word I'm looking for, it gets more mature as it goes through, because all my best songs are true stories. I've written around 1,500 to 2,000 songs now, and all my best ones.
Wow.
You know, so when you've written that many, you've written them every which way but loose. Uh, and but my best ones are always true stories. And you know, I was looking at them and trying to figure out what I was going to do for this album, you know, years ago, and I was like, well, something just hit me. If I'm gonna, all my best songs are true stories, and I'm gonna sing about anything. well, then I know exactly what I'm going to sing about. And then I set out to, I think it was Prince or Michael Jackson that said if they would release an album with 12 songs, they'd write 120.
Yes.
Well, I figured, well, I'm no Prince and I'm no Michael Jackson, so I wrote 1,200, and I wanted to pick the top 12, and it ended up being 14.
Well, that's an interesting thing to talk about, the process of choosing the order, because this is, there's this sort of this amalgam of music you've got in your back catalog. It's in your head and you've played it everywhere, and it's in notebooks all over, and snippets of recordings, and to really bring it together as both individually small stories, and then the real true overplay of this story throughout as a theme. And it's not easy. What's that, how do you approach that whole process?
With the truth. It's the best way to do it. I really believe in putting emotion and soul and heart and soul into what I do. Really anything I do. And I knew if at first it was like I gotta make a new album, I gotta do this when I was younger. And then, you know, I grew up a little bit, and it wasn't so much I need to make an album, it was I need to tell a story. And that story was really the heart and soul of it. And that was really just, a big part of my life growing up, especially because like now I'm only 20 years old. And of course this has taken so long to create. And that's why I say 7 years, because that's the span that I lived this from. So for the most part, it wasn't that hard getting the order down, just because it was like, okay, well, this happened, and this happened, and this happened. There was a few things I had to mix around in order to make it less complicated. Um, but that was relatively easier. But writing and rewriting again all these songs in order to make it, make the number 2 connect with number 8 more, and have this come back at this, and have this guitar riff and slipping away match the trumpet riff, and putting myself through, and all this sort of thing. And it all had artistic, symbolism, and meant something. It wasn't just there to be cool. It all meant something. That was definitely a lot harder than picking the order.
Well, you're interesting that you've mixed a lot of dynamics of sound in, and like instrument selection. You got fantastic players who are supporting you through this. And I saw some of the like making of recording stuff, and it's like, especially recording and producing and mixing down during pandemic while touring and all the stuff going on. It's a very different process than just kind of, 7 guys going into a studio for 9 straight days and just banging it out. Like this a laborious process. And but I love the mix. So what makes you bring those different instrument sounds and those different styles in?
Well, like you said, the musicians they're amazing. Most of them are the other guys, my backing band, and there's a few extended members. We call those the other guys, and they're all fantastic musicians. But like I said earlier, they all have meanings. So like for example, the horns are more triumphant. That's what they're trying to symbolize, triumphantness. And so like in Big River to Cross, for example, there's the big horn section that comes in on that song, and that's supposed to seem like there's Big River to Cross, mean like we have to break up, and we have to end this and move on with our lives, and like this big goal that we've been trying to accomplish for so long, and then we finally do. And then I had also been putting myself through as also it wasn't a full horn section, it was a much smaller. It was just the trumpet, but that also had symbolism with the growing and maturity. Same way with like the rock and roll kind of. There's sirens in my background.
That's always a good sign.
Yeah, live in a college town. Yeah, it happens.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a sound you hear more often than you'd hope.
yeah, but like the rock and roll side and like Let Me Go Easy and like the guitar solo for Whiskey and Talking. A lot of that was very kind of like a battle between good and evil. And also had, depending on what part it is, it also symbolizes immaturity, and growing up. And this story started, I was about 13, and this album where it ended, I was 18. So there's a lot of immaturity there. Like I said, I try to be as honest as humanly possible in this album, and I think it definitely, I think it definitely helped being honest.
You're you're wise beyond your years in the way that it comes through, and it's always amazing to hear like just the strength and the depth of your voice. But the more than that, like that, sometimes you can like you could get away with just pure raw talent, like just the physical talent of singing is one thing, but there's an emotion that's buried inside it. And it's hard, like when you think most of the folks that you see that are, blues artists, they got a few decades of hurt in them. So for you to come at it and to be able to give this kind of storytelling and to have 7 years in at age 20, it's a pretty heroic amount of work that you've been doing to put this stuff together. How so 13, I imagine it was probably buried in you long before even 13.
Uh, I've always wanted to be a musician as long as I can remember. It was pretty highly discouraged from friends and family, as I think would probably be wise. You know, it's not. It is now, but starting out wasn't the most lucrative job, wasn't the safest job by far, and a lot. I know I'm in the vast, vast minority of musicians that can actually, make a living and then some. So, uh, and for a pretty long time, I wasn't. So it's nothing against anybody that said I wouldn't be able to make it or anything like that. Totally, totally cool. It worked out for the best for me. So um, I've always wanted to be one, and I just kind of put it off. I was also really shy. I've always had problem with self confidence. Still do, and just like, well, if they can't make it, there's no way I could ever make it. So I just kind of put it off for a really long time, but it was always there. And then I guess uh, when I was 13, and I kind of started, falling in love with this one girl, and that was just kind of the whole story of an on again, off again relationship. Especially being trying to keep it under wraps, not being able to talk to anyone because a secret. Um, it's I guess art is a great way for your own therapy. So it was almost just like I needed to get it out somehow, and a great way is to pretend like I made it up.
Yeah, that's the always the funny part. People don't realize how much truth is buried in those words that you're probably not supposed to reveal. And it's like
Oh
you're
yeah,
like, oh yeah, most of it's made up, except for the parts that are all real.
yeah,
The I always appreciate whenever Taylor Swift gets into a relationship. I'm all right. 2 years to a new album. This is
yeah,
fantastic. She's seems to be this wave of like good relationship. Realize it doesn't. Sadly, I shouldn't make fun of it. Because it is unfortunately a bit of a feeder for really fantastic stories and music because that emotion gets poured into it. On that though, the longevity of a song versus the longevity of the original emotion. What do you feel about this idea that you're going to be playing songs that really meant something immediate and distinct when you were like 17, and you're going to carry that 10, 15, 20 years down the road, you're going to bring those songs up and it's going to be a hit, not the story of 17-year-old Charlie who is like suffering.
yeah. I've thought about that a lot. Like I think it was Joe Walsh said about one of his tunes. I think uh, that if I known that was going to be the song I'd sing for the rest of my life, I would have written a different song. So I've thought about that a lot. I don't know because the story hasn't necessarily ended yet. So I'm kind of, even though the last song, Best Thing Ever Made, that part of the story ended when I was 18 when I just graduated high school. So it hasn't really ended yet, and I totally thought it did. It totally did not. Um,
Even
it's
you get surprised by the story sometimes.
yeah, but I can't talk too much about this, but I did when I was on tour, I was touring through Houston, and I'm from a really small town near Houston, so I got to be in town, and uh, I was there, and kind of all hit me back, all those memories and stuff. I drove by my old school, and all those roads we used to sneak down in private, and those 30 miles an hour roads we all used to go 85 on. Um, and all that sort of thing. And even though it's changing a lot, that really small town in just a very short amount of time, all those memories and feelings and even songs I forgot I wrote came back. And when I actually got to meet again with some of these people and uh, figured out that, oh crap, this story kept going, because I actually met with someone special a few times. And I remember that night I had a show because I got into an argument with her, and I had a show in Houston, a really small joint. It was called the 202 Main, just in like Conroe outside of Houston. And I put on probably the best show I put on all year. I was just, it was just a little one man show joint, but it was definitely in top five. Uh, and I've been looking back on that show like, man, I got to do that again. I don't know if that emotion's ever gonna go away. Every time I sing these songs, I think about, how I wrote them, how I felt after I wrote them, how I feel about them now. It's, at least in the short span of time, because I realize that could be a different story when I'm, 40 years old. But uh, as of right now, the emotions haven't gone away. I don't really see them going away anytime soon.
Well, and this is where like the collaboration stuff comes in too, because there's a real emotion to pairing with somebody and co-writing, and you really hear it and feel their contribution to it through that. I mean, I pulled on to old country roots too, right? I remember watching as a kid Honeysuckle Rose with my and I love that movie. It's Willie Nelson, which is basically like a biography of him, this idea of going out on tour with a girl, and but realizing his wife was like, I was that girl, and I see how you're looking at that girl now, so I know something's going on, because I was the one that took you from somebody else, and I don't want you to do that to me. And one of the most, because it's like it's Willie's band, I always loved that he would just use his guys, and watching this thing of the moment that they're on stage and then they connect, and it's there, like that emotion comes even with just connecting with the audience, with connecting with the drive on the way to the venue, and you're like, oh man, that's that pizza joint that we used to go to, and I remember having this big argument out there, and just like that kicks in, and all of a sudden you're on stage, and you close your eyes, and that's it, that memory just takes over.
Yeah, man. And that's really why I'm doing this. I'm trying to connect with the audience. Like I said in the beginning, it's a big deal. So if I can carry that emotion through the rest of my career and into the audience and into the bands and everything, uh, well then I guess I did something right.
When you're performing, what is how adaptive is the performance? Because you obviously, I mean, you got it set up, right? There could be nobody in the room, and you could nail down the songs. Like, so you've already got the music's in you, the story's in you, you're ready to perform. You guys rehearse. Everybody knows that. It's fun, just like any job. It's like, I know I can pull this off, but then situationally, things adjust. How much do you do things like move around set list or extend parts of the song? Like how much do you like to mix that in?
Oh, a whole lot. I actually try to never play the same song the same way twice, especially with the band. I throw in extra verses. I put in new lyrics. Uh, that's more for like the acoustic stuff when there's not a whole lot else you can do. But I'll I'll modulate it. I'll add in extra instruments. Take instruments out. I always make it fun. I always try to make it because I don't want people to think, if I wanted to hear this song, I could just listen to his album on my phone. Go come out to the show, and it's always different. It's always more fun. I'll get people's names from the audience, and I'll slip their names into the song just for the hell of it. I'll even write songs on the stage with the band. They'll be like, "You give me a word, okay, flowers. You give me a word, umbrella. All right, this one's called flowers and umbrellas. And we'll make something up."
That's awesome.
So it's always different, and the set lists are different every night, which makes practices extremely hard, but it makes the shows extremely fun.
Well, and it's like I remember doing medleys when I was in, I would never want to play like a whole song. We would do our original stuff, and the funny thing is, so actually the story, the name of like DiscoPosse, where this came from, is that we were in this like heavy band, and we were sort of like, I'll say Toolish, very melodic, heavy music, and then. So you got that style, and then what we would do is we would open our own band with our own band, but we would put on like funky wigs, and we would play really heavy versions of disco songs. And so I called it the Disco Posse, and we would just play Wild Cherry and Chic, and just like me, we're just rocking out with a 7-string, and it was a blast. And then you would just go get a couple of drinks. Now you're relaxed. Then you play your original stuff. And people really kind of, playing originals sometimes when you go into these small venues is a good sign to, like, if you want to go to the bathroom, now's a great time, because you're not going to know what the song sounds like. But they would know that we were there twice, and they would really kind of dig into it. And that was the thing, is playing stuff that was dynamic. You'd start to play and you can see the room, you can feel it, not like just the vibe wasn't right. And so we would switch up and just like go with it. And you had to be ready to kind of throw away the set list, because there's nothing worse than if you're just like, the next song on our list is, X. And like people, if they didn't like the last one and this one sounds just like it, why in the hell are you playing that song? Yeah. Just figure out what they want to hear.
You got to be able to adapt.
If you were to say the first song that you played end to end, that you wanted the room to say, check this out, I learned this song, what was the one that made you ready? You're like, this is it, I'm a performer, I learned this whole goddamn song.
Oh, actually, you know what? I think it was an original. I do remember it because it has followed me around for years. It was a god awful song. It was called Angel. I didn't really know how to play guitar. I knew like a chord and a half, and I was 14. And so I played for a few of my first like open mics and that sort of thing, nothing real. And I actually did have like 2 gigs just through some people I knew. They had like some charity events. So I got, like a few bucks for that. But Angel, that was it. I even put it when I was 16. I made a terrible record. It's terrible. You can check it out. It's awful. I wouldn't suggest it.
You definitely know I'm putting links into that one now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's not that great. But I knew nothing about music, nothing like Americana Whatever's Left. But it was called Good Time Charlie, and the first song on it was Angel, and it was pretty awful. I've actually rewritten all those songs just to see if I could, just to make them suck a little less. Actually, they don't suck that much anymore, but the original recordings you can look at, they're all awful. But yeah, it was Angel. I was so proud of that. Terrible.
That's the other thing, right? Evolution of the music is something that, like, I remembered going through, like I said, like my singer in the band, he's just got this like just notes, like basically like a poetry style book with weird stuff all over it. And he would just be like, all right, and you're tapping into a rhythm. You're like, okay, cool. Let's just go dig. And he's like, he remembers a word and he's like, all right, flip, right. Find some sentence, some phrase that he wrote. And then from there would like carry on, and we would do stuff. And I remember recording on this, like, sorry, I'm an old dude. So I recorded on like 4-track, like old school cassettes, putting 4 tracks and then bouncing it down on physical tracks, which means that basically you get bleed between the tracks. So it just destroys the dynamics of it. But hey, to us, it was like, holy crap, we recorded, a song, and we actually managed to squeeze in layered guitars and stuff. But we would do this, and then you would record it. And then like a month later, you'd almost like forget how that song was recorded because you'd listen to something else and it would start to adapt. And then you realize like, oh man, that's the real song. Like it's living, it's breathing, it's organic. And that's actually one of the best things, because that the emotion just gets carried forward into a new vessel, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that if you release it, I know that's different just keeping it on a track in, your bedroom. But if you
Yeah.
release it out to the world and it's on the radio and stuff, and people hear it and connect with it, it grows even, because obviously I can't change them now. They're there. I mean, I could do a remastered version one day, but that's them. So I also think that they evolve and they grow and they're living in a different sense by the way people look at them. All the time people come up and tell me, use somebody as my wife's song or whatever, and they'll tell me why, and they'll give me their little life story, and I'm just thinking, and I'm telling them, that's great, it's terrific, thank you, but I'm just thinking, I don't know how the hell you got that. I don't know, that's not a great song to have with you and your wife, man. You didn't listen to that song properly, but it has a different meaning and a different connotation to them. So beautiful that I could, this thing that I wrote so specifically about my life could mean something so similar to somebody in a completely different situation. And I did have that intent to give it a little bit of vagueness so that could happen.
Yeah.
It took off so much further than I thought it ever could.
Well, this is the interesting thing. You're handing it to the listener for them to interpret, and you have to sort of surrender to how it's going to be interpreted. That's got to be a weird feeling, like, because you almost want to like, no, man, it's not what it's about. Like poetry, songwriting, artistry, when the artist is not there, we're all like, oh yeah, this is what he meant when he drew it. And you can see like it's the shades of yellow that were in the sun and the sunflowers in the side of France. And you're like, no, just the dude's kid really liked yellow, so that's why it's yellow. But you're doing that. You have to effectively give this thing and then listen to how people enjoy it and interpret it. What's that like?
Uh, it's like I made something that's better than myself. Like I don't know, like I'm Dr. Frankenstein, and now I don't know, and now the monster is designing skyscrapers. I'm like, well, crap, you did a better job than I did. I made you, and you can barely talk. You know. So it's humbling and a little awkward at first sometimes. I once played a acoustic show, just a little one-man show, and I think it was in Fort Worth, and some people came out and they were sitting kind of in the middle, so I couldn't really tell who it was. And at the acoustic show, sometimes we'll tell little stories and little, I wrote this when I was on the road and about this and that. Not all the time, just sometimes. And some lady went, "No, it's not." I'm like, okay, and I just started playing it. Like I didn't even know what to say. Like
Yeah.
I wrote it. Like I don't know what to say. Guess it ain't. Fair enough. Good point. You got me.
You got heckled at a show. That's definitely a new, but it is amazing to see how people can connect it to their experience at the time, just in the same way that when you drove by your high school, you remember the car you had. You remember the music that was on the radio every morning for the last semester that you were there. Like there's all this connective memories that are there that are very situational, that are very specific. And then years go by and they're there. They're always there. Like some of it bleeds and fades, but it really is funny how now that you're the guy that's creating that point in time experience that you have and giving it to somebody, in 15 years, they're going to be driving by their high school going like, man, I remember listening to that Charlie Cope album. And this was like, I got some stuff done in that car, whatever it's going to be. Right.
It's pretty amazing. It doesn't always yeah, I don't always think about that. It doesn't always hit me that these songs could um I didn't really I definitely didn't expect them to be as popular as they are. I didn't expect them to get on the charts, much less 7 of them. And so many different charts as well and all around the world, and I see bands that are covering it and everything, and I didn't expect it. I knew I'd get a couple fans by this time in my career, but I didn't think I'd have nearly as many as I do. This is it's a little weird.
Yeah, well, tell you, it's earned and deserved. And so on that, right, Charlie, when did you know this was your career?
Um, when it's gonna sound corny. Uh, when I told the girl this is what I was gonna do. The girl in this when I told someone special this is what I was gonna do. I don't know. She didn't really say anything. She just kind of looked at me funny, and she had this like look in her eyes. I'll never forget. We were kids. It was a million years ago, but uh, and then I started showing her all my songs. She's like, "All right, Charlie, you need to shut the hell up now." But it was just that was like it was a cool feeling because she knew the first songs. She knew it was about her, um, and I don't know, it was kind of a really cool feeling. And then, years later, when I start seeing people, they're telling me about the songs and how they feel for them, it just the career grew. I knew this is what I was probably the only thing I was actually capable of doing. Uh, and then defining more and more and more reasons to it. Um, just the career itself was also a living entity. It also grew, and so did my reasoning behind it.
The business is weird, especially now, right? With like this, people don't get this, that you going to produce and release an album. There's lawyers, there's craziness, there's leaps of faith, there are contracts that you're going to look back on in 20 years and weep about. You hear some of the stories, even just the simplest things like co-writing credits and songwriting credits. So like stuff like that. I remember hearing like Billy Corgan talking about, he's like, be careful what decisions you make at the start, because 15 years in, when you're the one getting the check and the 5 people that are on tour with you for 15 years aren't getting the same check, there's a very weird thing about being the voice, the songwriter, the creator, and having a great supporting crew. But you have to think about weird future stuff when you don't even know it's real yet, as you're like just trying to get yourself out there. That's got to be a strange sensation of seeing it as a business while also just being a performer.
Uh, yeah, and especially in my head, I'm still that 14 overweight kid with the goofy haircut, So uh, I don't necessarily think, I need to get my band some NDAs because when I give them the schedule for the next album, we can't tell that on the radio. We can't tell that in magazines or uh, my drummer's like, "Hey Charlie, I just bought a magazine. Your face is on it." It's like that's a like, do you put it there? Like, with a sticky note? Like, what like, that's a weird feeling. So, and then the whole business side, I don't necessarily think of those things right away. It's more of like, uh, "Hey, guys, you wanna go grab a burger and I can show you the new songs that I have?" Not, here's your NDA before I show you these songs.
That's right.
It's very weird. It's very weird. But luckily, I have a lot of great mentors on the music side and the business side, and they've helped me out. And I found those really early in my career. So I did have a jump start for when things start moving. I kind of already knew what I needed to go down.
How much of the scene sort of impacted your ability to get close to music? Because I'd say in Texas, there's definitely a very strong music scene, and there seems to be an understanding of the talent that's in the area. It's a beautiful thing to go through there. Like Tennessee's got its own scene. Of course, you got New Orleans got its own style. Everybody's got these very localized groups, but having sort of close proximity access to a real industry, not just big oil, but big music, it must have been helpful, I'd say, versus some poor guy that's up in North Dakota just trying to make this happen.
Yeah, his neighbor lives a mile away. Yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
right.
it was a huge impact on me actually. So like I said earlier, mentors. I take mentors everywhere I can. Uh, I'm always trying to learn something, no matter how much I think I know about something. I don't know much about it, and especially like we said earlier, this business is very weird and constantly adapting. So advice that I had or lived by or even gave just a year ago might not be true anymore, especially with COVID. Um, so a lot of my inspirations came from local musicians, probably even more so than Tom Petty or Bob Dylan, that I might have grew up listening to. I think those local guys, especially around Houston, I think around Dallas Fort Worth, it's a little bit more country. Around Houston, there's a lot more blues and there's a lot more Americana. So it's really folky,
Yeah.
like for like it's kind of John Prine is big, Towns Van Zandt is huge. So listening to those guys, that's a lot of storytelling there and really intricate lyrics. Uh, Hanging out with those guys and like you know this person taught me how to write a set list and this person taught me how to put on a show other than the music and this person uh, my buddy Van Buchanan taught me how to write a catchy song, right? And actually I met Van at a JP Hop's house, which is one of my favorite bars in the whole world. Weird thing to say when you're 20. And uh, it's been one of my favorite bars since I was a lot younger. I don't want to say how younger because I don't want to get them in trouble. I wouldn't drink there. I would just go there to play. But some of the like top singer songwriters come around and they'll hang out every now and then. I was part of the Nashville Songwriters Association. I was part of the Houston Songwriters Association, a few other things too, and just uh, everyone would just go there and play, and that was just like one of the hot spots. And I would go do that and do open mics before I had a bunch of gigs. I would even do like 7 or 8 open mics in one day. Just I was like, okay, this song was too slow. They said it needs to be faster. Okay, this one was too fast, needs to be slower. And this person did this and this person did that. Try to learn from everywhere I could go. So the scene around there was very big.
The interesting thing too is the weird transparency to the writing process. There is a lot of that, right? And some people, maybe especially later in their career, they're like, no, F all y'all, this is what the song is going to sound like, whether you like it or not. This is how it's going out. But early on, as you find that voice, find your style and figure it out, like sometimes just through that creative process, you got to test it. And audience testing, it's like comedians do this all the time, right? They'll go out and they just do little like 8-minute spots, here and there. And even big, huge comedians, Chappelle shows up at the Comedy Store and he'll do, 10 minutes, which really blows up the poor bugger who's on after him. Didn't know that he was going to show up. But then that material gets matured and tested and worked on. And then sometimes it's the room that's wrong. Sometimes it's you that's wrong. Sometimes it's the timing that's wrong. And then over time, all of a sudden you're like, all right, now I've got the song that's really ready. And like, it's kind of automatic at that point. But do you like that collaborative audience style writing?
Oh yeah, it's called road testing. Yeah, it's really important. I've done it on every one of these songs, some more than others. Uh, yeah, it's really important because I mean I'm trying to connect with the audience. So, or I know that's different from a show to a studio, but I'm trying to connect with them. So to get their opinion on it is so huge, and especially because I'm always asking everybody's opinion, even if they don't know anything about music. And so I always take whoever I ask, I always take it with a grain of salt. But um, that's really important, especially for me because, like I said, I've always had a bit of an issue with self confidence. So I'm like, I don't know, does this work? Does this work? And then I'm like, Charlie, that's like one of your best songs ever. Like, oh, okay, cool. So uh, I'm always asking them, and I'm always very cautious about my music. I don't want to release crap that I think is good and no one else does. So I'm always road testing it, and it helps them evolve a whole lot.
Have you ever known that someone was just wrong? And like,
Family,
yeah.
family, yeah, they've given me some terrible advice. Some advice. I've had one of them. Won't say who. Won't say who. But so one person was telling me something. I was like, oh well, actually, that's illegal. You can't do that. Like, oh, but I saw a TV show about it. What? Well, yeah, there's a sitcom about a rapper. And I just was like, okay, I'm not gonna argue with you. He's like, I know more than you because I watched this sitcom. I was like, okay, I'm a professional. um, cool. I'll take your word for it. I gotta run though. Like I've had people in family tell me to stop playing shows for money, start playing gigs for free. Like that's an interesting approach. Um, ton of people told me to quit so many times. Like it was, it got so annoying the amounts of times they would tell me to quit. Not every one of them, of course. A lot of like my grandfather on my mom's side bought me my first guitar, and he was the first person to tell me I could make it. And he's even on the album. Uh,
Oh wow,
got
that's
him-
awesome.
yeah, I got him in the intro track with the clapping. Yeah, he's one of the first people clapping. Uh, so I got him on that. But yeah, a couple of them were just like terrible advice, like drop out of college, get a regular job. And it was like, okay, well, at least get a regular job as like a waiter or in fast food or something, until you really make it big. I'm like, I already and just hold off on the music. Why would I do that? I already even at this point, I was probably 18. I was like, make less money than I am now? Like, why? And hold off on, the career? Like it doesn't make any sense. But it's all good. You always have to take it all with a grain of salt, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, and you think about every musician, every artist, every creator has had somebody just say like trash, right? Like somebody got the first Kiss album, they're like, I'm just not hearing a hit here,
Yeah.
like that was one of the famous, like Joan Jett, like talks about this thing of going to like shopping. I love rock and roll to 40 different record producers, and they're all like, I just can't imagine hearing this on the radio. And
Yeah.
today she's probably still getting six-figure checks for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great song, but if you really think of it, like try to step back, it's a great song. Love Joan Jett, one of my favorites, but it's so extremely cheesy.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's it. And this is the interesting thing too. Have you got songs that people love that you hate? Or that you're not hate. Sorry, that's a bit of a dark word. But songs that you're like, oh, I wish people didn't like this as much as they did, because I kind of feel like it's either boxed into a period of time or maybe the style wasn't quite how you want it.
Um, Breaking Down Never Felt So Good is one of mine, and that's a great song. I love to play it. It hurts my arms to play it, but it's a great song. Um, and it's really fast. It hurts, especially the poor drummer because he's going to town on that tambourine for
Yeah.
and when we play it live, it's longer. Um, so that one. But if you do it at like a one-man show or like a two-man show or something like that, it's not always as good that way. So I'll get like people to clap along and stuff. But if the crowd isn't as responsive, it just doesn't work as well. So I don't play it in that event. Like you said, you got to update the
Yeah.
set list as it goes. But sometimes people just like request it. I've even had people request it like 3 times in one 4-hour show. And the crowd was so not into it. And it was just a one-man show, so I didn't have the band. I was like, don't think okay. But because I mean, I wrote it, so it's if I get a song request for one that I wrote, it's kind of hard to avoid playing that. But uh, that's it's also just a pain to play. And I
Yeah.
gotta do all the solos by myself if I'm playing acoustically. That don't get no easier.
No, sir. No, no, that's it. It's like the acoustic fretboard and string tension is not designed for that kind of playing. You know, I mean, there are guys that I'm always amazed. I there's a guy who's a subway musician in Toronto where I was raised, and I remember going through every day, and he would play. It's like bitter cold. He's wearing fingerless gloves, and he's playing this crazy like high speed like Spanish flamenco stuff. And then but then it turns out he also played like heavy duty like prog rock as
Mhm.
well. And he's like, so he's like, he started playing on an acoustic, and he's like, I can't do this, dude. I can't. He's like, it's just you break down fast. And he plays all the time, and he's like, nope, this is not good for your soul or body to do this.
Oh, and I have several guitars on the stage, but one of my main guitars, the one a lot of the pictures are with Jesse. Actually, I have it right here. These are custom strings, so they're really really thick and they're really heavy.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
they're hardly guitar strings. They're more like steel bridge cables. They're they're big, man.
What's the gauge on that from this is where we nerd out for all the people that if you want to
Oh
tap out for a few minutes, we're gonna nerd out on some guitar tech.
yeah. Oh yeah.
You can even hear you fighting to bend, like you know that those are some thick strings, but what a beautiful tone though.
Oh yeah. Love this guitar. It's I named her after Jesse Coulter.
Oh yeah, yeah. Very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, all my guitars have names. Oh yeah, we're gonna nerd out.
This is
Over
why
here.
I just because oh there you go. Nice. I did just because I got a collection of guitars around to show you. This is one my wife got this for me, and I was actually particularly proud of this one. Less about so it's hard to see, it's not going to focus. That's signed by Ed Sheeran. And
Oh, cool.
and it says, please play, don't display. I'm like, yes, sir. I play this thing all the time. This is a Martin. It's like a baby guitar. This is Ed Sheeran's like model. I think
Mhm.
Ed Sheeran must be 4 feet tall because this is a tiny, it's just like a little wee guitar. But so it feels funny because I play a 7-string.
Yeah.
So when I pick up even a 6-string, I feel like Jimi Hendrix's hands wrapping around the neck. So this thing, it's like it feels like junior size, but it's fantastic. The sound like this little tiny Martin guitar, but and it's just like just big thick sound, and oh, I love the warmth of it.
Please play, do not display. I like that. I might steal that.
That is, you got to put that on someone's guitar. That
Man,
is too
I've
true.
signed plenty of guitars, man. It always freaks me out. Like, are you sure? Like, you want me? Like, you don't
Well,
want me to sign like your beer can or something? I do that a lot, you know.
that's an interesting thing too, right? Is that there's this different level that you get, right? Because some people want you to sign a thing. It has both a meaning in that moment, and they see this longevity of the meaning, and it's really amazing to be able to mean that to somebody, right? That's got to be pretty wild. And then at the same time, you're just like, it's like a $3,000 guitar, dude. Maybe you should. Can I just sign a piece of paper, like maybe a
Yeah,
book or something?
yeah. One of my like biggest fears is like I'm going to misspell their name on their guitar. or
With a
like
nice
this.
big thick Sharpie.
Yeah, exactly. Just I would feel like such a tool if I did that. Like so, like you could see me if there's like a every now and then at the bigger shows, there'll be like a line of a couple people that want me to sign stuff and they'll take pictures of me and stuff. You could see the panic in my eyes.
Now, this is the fun part because I know there's nothing worse than me like dance for me, right? Because you come on, we want to talk but at the same time, if I don't even know the legality of can I play your songs if you're playing your songs on my podcast that's released, I'm like, am I going to get busted for a DMCA? I don't know how that whole works, but
You have my permission. You can play my music as much as you like.
there you go, folks. That's for the
Music
lawyers.
to
We
be
heard it.
shared.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, Charlie, man, it'd be a real honor if you wanna play a little bit for us. I would love to mix up. Be the first time I've ever had a live player on the podcast, and then we can jump back into some more of the tech.
Yeah, sure. Do you have a favorite?
No, you know what? I'm going to say this is artist pick. If you had the song that you wanted people to know that, this is the start of your listening journey, throw down.
Make sure I'm in tune. I'm not. Let's switch back.
This is half the battle.
Yep. It's at least I'm inside, not out in the cold.
Oh, there's nothing worse than playing outdoor gigs and you're like, this is not going to go well. And temperature changes make a mess.
Your fingers turn to sausages.
Oh, yeah. Oh, when I grew up, I'm in New Jersey now, but I grew up in Toronto and it was disturbing. We'd go and play outdoor gigs. So you're sitting around a campfire. So your guitar is like hot on the front. Your back is cold from the winter. And it's a bad scene. That I've got an old Seagull guitar, which is basically almost the same style as a Martin. It's an open top, so not laminated. This thing's been through wars. I still have the price tag on it. I bought it when I was like 22. So it's like 25 years old. And I still love this guitar. But man, it's a miracle it's still with me these days. And the action is still like super low. It's a beautiful play. I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah. I see like William Prince playing outdoor in the snow on New Year's Eve in Canada. Yeah. I was like, oh God, not just guitar, but also your vocals. Like, I'm wearing a Carhartt if I'm outside and like anything below 70.
Exactly. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. I could say Charlie Cope.
Can you hear the guitar okay?
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. So that's so the cool thing, this signal wire platform that I use, it actually plays pretty cleanly. And technically I can actually talk while you're playing and it records both. It's not like Zoom where it like cuts out one when someone else starts talking. It actually multiplexes audio. That's another nerd bit for the folks that are used to networking and studio recording. So, but yeah, that's why it doesn't cut off as bad. Zoom is horrible to play on because any change in the dynamics, it tries to auto adjust and it just blows up the dynamics.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, so we talked about best steak I ever made a couple times. Let's see if I can get it work. We'll do a little different version. So guess you heard about my reputation. It's my fault for promoting it so long. Should have stood up to the allegations. Well, you took it round away with the song. Yeah, I miss seeing your Pontiac in my driveway. Stuck staring at me, your spotted me. Yeah, I know you're not driving back my way. I guess you finally realized, yeah, I'm just a mistake that you made. It's the best mistake you ever made. Yeah, I guess you stopped guessing if we'd work out. Yo, you stopped a long time ago. You went back to your boyfriend of 7 years. Well, good luck with that shit show. Our story was riddled with disaster. We were never meant to make it anyway. I look back and all I see is the laughter. But you look back and you see a mistake that you made. It's the best mistake I ever made. You were matching, passionate, dancing at the Green Hall, dancing to Randy Rogers band from my headlights. Jason Desmond told our story, so I showed you Willie Nelson's songs. It was only temporary, so I thought that you might leave instead of slipping away. With the best mistake ever made.
I love it. It's beautiful,
Sorry,
man.
my voice might be a little bit out of tune. I didn't warm up or anything.
No, I know that's always the worst too. I'm like, it's one thing as a guitarist, you can always sort of mess with your fingers and get ready. But so thank you for being on the spot and nailing it, dude. That was very, 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 very cool. And I tell you, perfect setup, because one of my favorite questions that I love to ask people, which I'm pretty sure I stole from somebody like Tim Ferriss, and it is thematic to the song. What is the worst thing that's happened to you that you're the most thankful for?
Good one. Worst thing that's happened to me that I'm thankful for. It might not all be great, but well, I was gonna say it might not all be great, but it all worked out in the end, so none of it's terrible. But there's quite a bit of terrible stuff. I mean, as you can probably tell if you Google me enough, look up other magazines. A lot of people know I have my history battling addiction, and I was homeless for a little while, which actually the homeless thing wasn't that bad at all. Um, uh, I also don't want to spoil any future songs, but
That's all good.
I had some problems with this girl, and she had some problems in her personal life, and it just killed me to see her struggling with her own problems. Uh, but I think that made both of us a lot stronger. And if she didn't have to deal with those problems, she wouldn't have been able to. Uh, she wouldn't have been able to brace the ones that were coming. I know that didn't really happen to me, but seeing someone that I loved struggle, it's definitely worse than anything that could ever happen to myself.
Quite
Sorry,
often no,
that got deep.
that's good, man. That's why you never open with that question. You want to
Or
you
ends. That would be a weird ender too.
nah, but and you shared before about your personal journey and some of the challenges you faced, and this industry, the music. I say this industry like I'm in it, but I know of it, and I got a lot of friends that are in the music industry and performers, and everything, TV, radio. It's a real weird. Just on a good day, it's a weird life because it's very non-structured. It requires you to build a lot of coping mechanisms to normalcy, right? Like there is no normal by the standard definition. And it's funny when you see a lot of folks, right? People see like Dave Mustaine from Megadeth, and then he speaks 3 languages, and he talks about all his philosophy he's read and writing, and people are like, but you're the lead singer in a heavy metal band. They're like, this dude's got a lot of free time and he's fighting addiction. So he has built a lot of coping mechanisms and things that allowed him to compensate for time he'd be, I could be on the tour bus and then going into the city copping, and then heading back to the bus, or I can read a goddamn Shakespeare and really get into something that keeps me busy. So when you go into an industry that is non-structured, where you have to sort of build your own safety into your life, how does that work?
Well, I took control of a lot. I don't really like depending on others, and especially in this industry. I mean, there's been so many times when people have asked me, some other groups, some soul and pop singers in a blues band, we were all going to go on tour together, and they came to me, they approached me, they gave me all the numbers, and we even had contracts, and then the whole tour kind of fell apart. And I mean, I knew I had contracts, I could have done something, but I'm not gonna, it's not like I was being taken advantage of or anything like that. So it unfortunately fell apart. So I rolled with it. I just said, no worries, keep me in mind in the future. Let me know if you need anything, that sort of thing. Keep in touch. And we didn't. But I really dislike depending on other people. I'm very independent. I'm a very independent person. So I started up I did everything myself, so all the tours I go on now, they're my tours. And if I run in, they do sometimes intersect with other people's tours, Parker McCollum and William Clark Green and Randall King and stuff like that. We will intersect, but it's always, if I'm on tour, is my tour, at least for the next few years. So it's all, when I'm the boss, I have so much more control. I don't have complete control, but I have a lot more control. And I think the people that work for me, my promoters and agents and musicians, I think they realize that I am extremely professional in what I do. And I'm also a man of my word. And so I will go above and beyond to say what I mean what I say. And sometimes, like I said, things happen. COVID happened. I don't think anyone really, only a couple
had
people
that in a plan.
Yeah, only a couple people really gave me a hard time. They're like, well, why does this happen like this? Well, COVID. Like most people, 90% of people are like, oh, okay, that's cool. No problem.
Yeah.
Understandable. But I try to take control as much as I could and be very professional. And I also expect and ask that everyone that works with me try to do the same, and I hold that very, somebody's word, it means a whole lot to me. So I am a very trusting person, but I'm also, I think I am where I am because I learn everywhere I go and I get mentors and all that. So I'm a trusting person, but I'm also going to learn. So if your word falls apart a bunch of times, I'm going to learn. Like I'm going to, unfortunately as it may be. So I try to take as much control as I can, even if that's not necessarily the healthiest way to deal with it.
Well, I'll say it's not even as much control as responsibility. You put the responsibility on yourself, but because you're giving back into it, right? It's not just I'm taking controls and I don't trust anybody. You're taking controls and I'm ultimately responsible for the outcome here. And I'm going to depend on other people occasionally, but I want them to be responsible. And if they fail to meet that bar, then the responsibility goes back to me. So it's a weird thing that we still talk about the word control. And some people say like, Charlie, you're controlling because you do everything. You're like, there's a very big difference between control and responsibility. Control is power. Responsibility is ownership.
Yeah.
Big difference.
I definitely don't have much power, but I definitely have a whole bunch of ownership.
You sure own the outcomes.
Yeah.
But it's a huge lift, right? Especially because it's not just you. You've got performers, AR, PR people. You've got, you know, contracts to uphold. You've got take care of your body, take care of yourself to perform all the time. People don't get like, if I get sick, I just call in sick. Like you're out on the road, you're sick, you're gargling lemon and salt water and spewing it out your nose and doing weird stuff to like flush your sinuses in between sets because you can't stop. That's nuts.
Yeah. We have protocols. If any of the band members ever get sick on the road, we have protocols for that. Because as a singer, that's the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah.
Oh, terrible.
I remember hearing that was a funny thing. It was Billy Corgan was on. He was getting interviewed. I think it was on and it was Opie and Anthony. They were in New York. Their talk show, and like 40 minutes into the interview, the guy's like, "Yeah, sorry." He says like, "There's water everywhere because I've been sick for like 2 straight days. I'm just trying to stay hydrated." And Corgan just says to him, "Yeah, it was perfect. This is a great time to tell me because it's not like my voice is my job." Yeah. Like I've been sitting in this tiny little glass room with you for 40 minutes and you're breathing on me, you bastard.
When I was in the hill country, like hill country area of Texas on tour, I played 23 hours in 8 days.
Ooh. Wow.
Well, I think it was like 13 gigs or something. I don't know. It was something like that. It was 23 hours in 8 days. And so I was sick as a dog because I can't eat the day of a show until afterwards because it'll mess up my voice.
Yeah, yeah.
So I wasn't eating because I was having like multiple shows in a day. I wasn't eating till like really late at night. And if I had a morning gig, then I'm not gonna be able to eat. So and I wasn't sleeping because I also had to do all the business side stuff and the
Yeah.
album was soon to come and everything. So I was sick as a dog. And I got tested for COVID and I was negative, so cool. But it was just like, you probably should try sleeping. And I'm like, well, I can't. So um so yeah, I was terribly sick for like 2 weeks because I couldn't get better because I couldn't sleep. So I couldn't heal. It was terrible.
It's the strain on your voice. It's like, because I mean, it's a muscle, right? And it's like people with sore muscles, they take an Advil or Tylenol, whatever. You're like, there's no Advil for your throat. Like you can ultimately
There
and
is, but you
you
can't
can
get it at Walgreens.
right. Yeah, yeah, it's right. the catch with having to do this, especially you're doing morning gigs, you do morning radio for an evening gig, and they want you to perform. It's really, really hard to just like be on all the time. And sometimes when you're touring, that's it. There is no real break.
Yeah, I'm a workaholic at this point. I have a very addictive personality. I've actually been awake for 48 hours, give or take. I've been working a lot. Said this will come out in December, so I can say this. We have 2 tours next year.
Wow, unbelievable.
Yeah,
Congratulations in advance, man. It must feel good to know that the road is calling again.
in many ways, yes, I absolutely love it. In other ways, like getting sick for 2 weeks because I can't heal, that one sucks.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
the cheap Airbnbs, the road is really weird because it's trying to like a coping mechanism, kind of like you said. One night you could play for 1,500 people. People could scream your name. You could be signing guitars. You could, music legends that you grew up listening to could just be hanging out in the green room and want to jam with you. And that's just an amazing feeling. That could be like your Friday night, and then your Saturday night you could be playing for in a small dive bar for 25 people. It's it's such a weird just and it could be the very next night. It's so weird and just trying to cope with that just huge high and huge lows as you're just trying to make a living and connect with people and do whatever you're trying to do in your music or your job, and then just the ups and the downs are just so much bigger than any other ups and downs in any, most normal jobs. And I think a lot of musicians try to cope with that and the workload with, you know, chemical dependence. And
Yeah.
it's definitely an easy thing to get into.
Yeah, I mean, that's the challenge, and it's just there, right? That it's like people say, like, I don't understand why people get into it. Like, you don't even have to be a real pro musician. Like, you just go. I used to do like Tuesday night gigs at some like, you're playing like with 4 other bands and there's 25 people, and then you realize it's because it's the bands and their girlfriends. That's the 25 you're playing for. But you're basically playing for half price drink tickets. So you're not even getting paid. But it was like, hey, it's time on stage, it's practice, it's fun. Sometimes people show up, you never know. And even in those situations, you could see in the peer level, it was very easy to get into much more than just the beer behind the bar. And I was lucky enough to avoid that culture altogether. But it's a tough and active choice that you got to make all the time. And people don't realize that it's such a weird, like, it's intrinsic. It's actually buried in the lifestyle.
Yeah, and it's free, and it's I don't want to give peer pressure because like everyone says that, but I mean at some point, uh, it's almost like just excessive guerrilla marketing. It's
Yeah.
I almost bought a T-shirt for like $80 yesterday. I was like, what am I doing? These are like 10. What am I doing? These aren't even 10. Just because I see the ad everywhere I go, I was like, you know what? I don't have any nice T-shirts, but it's just everywhere. And when you're on the road, it really is everywhere. And that's one of those things that as you know, if it's my tour bus, it's got my face on it, or at least part of my face on it, because the wrapping didn't come out great. And it's all mine, and I don't care what you do as long as you're safe and doesn't affect the show. It's none of my business. But I can take some control, some responsibility for it. Um, Again, like you said, two different things. But I can, like, okay, hey man, at this show, I've played this venue before with another group. They do have a lot of drugs going on backstage. Also, you're gonna meet a couple celebrities, and it's such a weird toss up. And I know that they're like, yeah, let's yeah, let's do some coke with bleep his name, celebrity, and
Right.
that's
Yeah.
uh, it's totally something I get and something I've done so much more than any human being should have. But at least I did it, got through it, got sober the last time I got sober, and I uh I can use it as an experience, even if I am a little bit terrified of it now. Uh, I can, I can look back with experience and know
Yeah.
how, and also, I mean, you meet so many people that you know, uh, they could be ODing or getting in dangerous situations or something like that, and like, whoa, hold up, I know exactly what to do,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
It's kind of sad that you end up having to be part-time paramedic. You almost got to be ready for that kind of stuff. And it's, 'cause, man, a lot of people don't get off those buses.
Yeah, we have some clauses. Like I said, if it's none of my business, but I do have a van, and anyone that needs a ride is encouraged.
Yeah.
Uh, I used to say, uh, driving under the influence is cool as long as you can handle it. I don't think that anymore. Um, it's it's I've seen it go very bad, especially with musician egos.
Yeah.
It can go very bad. We have, even if it's a home gig, we do have to drive sometimes an hour or two just for a home gig, and it can go bad. 2 a.m.
Oh,
You're
that's
falling
it. And it's all it takes is just, it's very easy. Yeah. You're already tired. You're amped up. You get a couple of drinks and you're like, it's only, like I used even like comedians do this all the time. Like, I'm been playing New York, just going to drive back to Boston. And it's like, that's a 3-hour drive. You're going to be, even if the ultimate intoxication, you're just going to fall asleep. Like no other stuff. Like there's a lot of dangers that are present that are not normal for most people. And you have to think about stuff that's very different, which is goes to that thing of responsibility. And I appreciate, you can tell in the way you even tell the story of it, how much it impacts, and it's inside you. So you got a lot of success. And I guess there's the fun question. When will you be able to say, I've made it? What's your mark?
Unfortunately, I don't think myself as a person, I don't think I'm capable, and I don't think myself as a businessman, I don't think I'm able. Two very different things. But as a person, I don't think I'm capable, because no matter how many people come up to Walmart and say, "You're the music dude," I just can't see myself as someone who's like a big deal. And that's not even my view as made it. My goal is to connect with people, and so there's not a number on that. I just, I don't think there's any real possible way to connect with everybody. So there isn't a number. It's not how many people come out to the shows or how much money or tour or billboards have my face on them. Right now, the number's 2, by the way. And in total, not right now, just in total, but it's just connecting with people. So I don't think there's ever, that number to get to. So I don't think I'll ever be able to actually make it. It's just my little crusade of love, peace, and kumbaya-ness.
I think it's cool. Yeah. And it's because even if you do get to whatever the next level is, your personal responsibility won't let you stop. And it's a beautiful thing when you can take your band with you, bring other people, so you can support a team of, PR people around you, like to be able to actually employ people and do what you love. And I got a huge respect for you for doing this. It's really amazing. And like, look, it shows in the music. It's really fantastic. You're a fantastic performer and writer. And if you hadn't done that bad album, then this would be your bad album. So you got it out of the way. That's
I'm hoping that 10 years down the road, I'll think the same one about this one, because that just means I grew. I got better. That's what I'm hoping.
Well, Charlie, you got a lot more than 10 glorious and well-earned years ahead of you. Especially, you got 7 in you already, and you're 20, so it's a good start. You're not even able to drink legally at most of these places. They got to fire you in the back door and try and hide you from the bouncers. That's always a weird thing too, right? When you're playing and you're under legal age, it's like they can obviously do it. They can furnish you getting in and out, but there's like all sorts of weird stuff that gets wrapped around that one, I imagine.
Well, I've had this beard on and off since I was 14. So it's the beard, and my hair is up in a bun now, so that helps too. So it's so weird because like the bouncers have no idea how old I am. Nobody knows how old I am unless they look at the magazines and stuff. So I've had like bouncers and venue owners hang out with me, because I'll hang out sometimes after the venue closes, and they'll just be complaining about these kids trying to sneak in, and I'm like 16. I'm like, man, these college kids, and like I'm a sophomore in high school, and I'm just like, yeah, man, they're terrible, But cool.
I remember going to this. I grew up in this tiny little town. It's like a farm town, and I like knew everybody knew everybody, right? It's like literally like 2,000 person town, and there's a place called the Village Inn, which is like the perfect name for the local drinking hole, and I would go into the Village Inn all the time. And I remembered going there for like a year and a half, and then celebrating my 19th birthday. So you're in Canada, and drinking age is 19, and watching you pull out your driver's license for real now. And, they're like, hey, what's the big occasion? I'm like, turning 19 today. And they're like, wait a minute. I know you. You've been going here for a long time. Like, it's all good. We won't tell anybody's story. We'll save that till the statute of limitation runs out.
There you go.
Charlie, thank you very much. This has been a real pleasure. And there you go, folks. CharlieCopeMusic.com. Lots of great links down below. Get the album. And if you can't afford the album, I'll buy you the goddamn album. So it's that good. There's lots of ways you can get it. So do so. Support amazing musicians and the whole ecosystem. And Charlie, I hope to see you on the road. Hopefully one day I'll be able to bump into you backstage somewhere on the 2022 tour now that the world is opening up a little bit. It's been a real pleasure to chat.
Yeah, thanks again for having me on.